tonight I have 2 blocks and I have a blanket for the knees and the mat. We're going to start to kind of combine some of the things that we've been doing for the last 2 weeks. So some hip extension, which we did last week, and then we'll do full spinal flexion, but more of the focus will be on the lumbar spine. I will be kind of taking this into a flow. We'll start kind of with the more regressed versions of things with the option. And remember, it's always an option. So if you're feeling it and you're feeling really strong and you're able to connect to your body and the cues that I'm giving you, then you can try to progress it. If you feel that during any of the time that you are not able to fully connect to what's going on in your body, just continue to do what we were doing before you progress it. So we are going to start lying. Well, we're going to start seated. So you're going to start seated. I'm going to face you first, and then I'll go to the side so you can see this from both directions. But you're going to start with your hand, with your legs more or less in a wider position, somewhat comfortable. If you feel that you cannot sit up all the way straight, my suggestion is to take a blanket and place it underneath your sit bones so that you are able to lift up onto your sit bones with a long spine. So we're going to start just in this position. We're going to take your left hand across and around through your spine to fold down towards your right foot. And then you're going to glide back up. Then your right hand is going to come across. Notice that I'm planting my left hand beside my left hip, and I'm rounding through my spine to reach towards my foot. So just kind of switch side to side. This is kind of warming up the spine, warming up the hips. And so we're stretching the hamstrings. You can go as far into this as you want and as your spine allows. And as you're doing that, I'm going to switch the direction so that you can start to see how we're going to progress this. So to progress this, you're going to now lean back onto your right elbow, lift up tall, tuck your pelvis, and then roll towards your right leg. Roll up, sit up straight. Your left elbow is going to come to the floor, so you're going to tuck your pelvis to bring either your hand or your elbow to the floor, and then you're going to reach down your left leg with your right arm. And then come up to sit up straight. We tuck to bring the elbow to the floor, stay in that rounded position, and round towards your foot. Roll back, and then sit up. Tuck, bring the hand or the elbow towards your left hip. Right hand reaches down to your left leg. Round back up and sit up. So that's stage 2. You can keep doing that. I'm going to scoot down a little bit, and then I'll show you the next option for the next progression. And you can be doing this all along. So to progress this, we're going to take right hand behind, lean back, roll back, and then as you come up, reach down your right leg with your left hand. Sit up straight and switch. Left hand comes behind you. You can come to the elbow or all the way down, and then roll down your foot and sit up straight. Reach back. Maybe the elbow tucks, then round through your spine, crossing like the letter X. Sit up straight. Twist to the other side. Tuck your pelvis, elbow or hand reaches behind you. Keep that rounding in your spine and roll down. Roll back up. The full progression, we roll all the way down. At this point, if you have the blanket and you feel you want to do the progression, Should probably remove the blanket. So my right hand is going to drag behind me. My left hand is going to reach towards my right foot, and I'm going to roll up. Right hand goes behind me as I roll back down. Left arm goes to that X, and I reach across with my left hand and roll up. So any of the progressions in between. This does take some core control. You can use the hand that's dragging behind you as a way to help you round and lift up. So you're not asking to roll completely from that recline position up without any support from a hand. But I'm just using it more or less as a guide. So we're going to do 2 more on each side. And any of those options in between is fine. And I'm kind of feeling that my spine is rolling off the ground and rolling back down. Good. When you're done, you're going to come onto your back and lie flat with your feet on the floor. If it's more comfortable to have your head propped on a blanket or a block, you can do that. And how do you know when you would prefer that? If you feel that it's hard to take the back of your rib cage towards the floor, my suggestion is to prop your head up. I'm going to take first our right hand to the front of our right thigh, right below our knee, and then we're going to lift the other knee. The hands are going to press firmly into the parts of your thighs that they're touching, and your knees are going to do the same into the hands. We're going to inhale through the nose, and as you exhale, blow out like you're blowing candles or shush, and create tension between the hands and the knees. As you inhale, let it go slightly, and as you exhale, blow candles, push hands and knees together. Inhale, let it go slightly. So we're going to continue to do this for several more rounds. And it's not a heavy push. It's just a light push of the hands and knees together, each exhale, and a slight release on each inhale. And I invite you to move deep into your body, specifically your trunk, so that region between the bottom of your rib cage and the top of your pelvis. And each time you exhale and create that resistance between your hands and knees, just notice what you feel that region of your body doing, both the front and the back, as well as the side bodies. What do they do as you or blow? You may also notice that the bottom of your rib cage starts to shift a little closer to the floor. And then bring the hands and the feet back down to the ground and see if you can create that sensation that you just experienced in your trunk each time you exhale. And then we're going to start to introduce the pelvic tilt. Pelvic tilt is going to start very subtle. As you exhale, think of tilting your tailbone up towards your pubic bone, or you can think of tucking your pubic bone into your belly button. So each exhale, just start to round your lower back by activating the front of your core. And start to notice, are you able to do this without pressing the feet into the ground? So we're starting very subtle, just that slight rounding of the low back. You'll feel the low back press into the floor, but it's doing that because you're activating the front of your core. You're tucking your pelvis or tilting tailbone and pubic bone up towards your belly button. So we're going to start to increase how much we tuck until perhaps the butt starts to lift off the floor. And then as you inhale, slowly roll it back down. Each exhale, see if you can tuck a little bit more, round your low back a little bit more, and lift your hips a little higher. As you start to lift your hips higher, you will feel that you have to press your feet into the floor, but let that be because you have no other choice. See how far you can tuck and round your low back to lift the butt off the floor before you start to press into your feet. Good. Each time getting a little higher until eventually you lift until your fronts of your thighs, we talked about the pockets last week, until your pockets push up towards the sky, and then roll one vertebrae down at a time. So exhale, start to roll. Think of segmentally peeling the vertebrae off the floor, lifting as high as you can, fronts of the thighs, where the pelvis meets the thighs is flat, and then segmentally roll back down. One more time with just the lower body. Feel that you can lift one for the lowest vertebrae off the floor at a time until you lift the hips. So you're making a flat ramp with your legs all the way straight. And then roll one vertebrae back down at a time. Let the hips shift side to side, and the knees shift side to side. So I'm going to start to roll up from the head. So we'll think of moving segmentally again. So first, keep your shoulders on the ground and try to tuck your chin as far up into your throat as possible. So not your chest, but even higher, like you're trying to create a rounding of the neck to lift the head off the blanket or the floor. And then think of rolling one vertebrae back down at a time. So start to time that with your exhale. Really think of tucking the chin in and up, lifting, and then rolling back down. Once you feel like you have that, you can start to peel more of your spine off the floor from the top down. And then think of rolling back down one vertebrae at a time. So we're moving really slow. And we're thinking the head lifts first. We roll up, and then the head stays in as far, chin tucked in towards the throat as far until it's the last thing to land. Do a couple of more of those, just feeling, can you lift a little higher? Only going as far as you feel that you're not putting excessive tension on your neck or your back or your shoulders. So if you feel that you can't lift the shoulders off the ground without creating excessive tension in the back or the front of your neck, just continue to just lift the head. Good. Come down and let the head rock side to side. So we're going to start to put these two movements together. So we're going to start to lift the lower back first, segmentally. And if I allow myself to only think of peeling one vertebrae off at a time, I stay in my body a little bit more. So we're going to first lift the hips, roll them back down, and then we're going to lift the upper body. So feet in line with your hips. As you exhale, start to peel pubic bone towards navel. Think of one vertebrae at a time, peeling off the floor, lifting the hips as far as you can maintain control, and then allowing the vertebrae to come from the top down. One vertebrae peels back at a time. And then on your next exhalation, tuck your chin and start to roll the lower body. Keeping the chin tucked as you roll back down. Next exhale, peel the lower body. Use the inhale to peel the spine back down to the floor. And then as you exhale, tuck your chin, lift up. You can start to lift even higher up. You may come up to that seated position. And then think one vertebrae at a time, all the way back down, chin tucks. It's the last thing to roll down to the floor. Next exhale, start from the lower body, peel up. Again, allowing your hips to lift as high as you can maintain control. Rolling back down, upper body, chin tucks. If you come all the way up, sit and stack your spine long, and then tuck your pelvis to roll the spine back down. And you're going to go at your own speed for 2 more rounds. Keeping your mind focused on your breath and trying to think of one vertebrae moving at a time. Noticing when the brain leaves, and just bring it back. And once you've completed the last round, you can allow your legs to move side to side, releasing any tension in the spine and the hips. You can allow the head to move the opposite direction of the knees. Good. So one at a time, lift your legs so that your knees are above your hips and your shins are parallel to the floor. Use your exhales to lift, keeping your trunk locked. So your pelvis and your rib cage are going to stay in the same, like you have a cement block of those two things staying together. Bring your arms up above your shoulders. We're just going to start to gently rock side to side. So allowing yourself to rock as far to the right and as far to the left. The head goes with the rest of the body. So we're not moving the legs one way and the head the opposite way. The chin is staying in line with your breastbone. And you have your ribs and your pelvis in a cement block gluing them together. So just allow yourself a moment to experiment with this. And I'll tell you, if your head doesn't rock with the rest of your body, you will not be able to stabilize this. And if you are not able to stabilize that, notice if you're trying to either hold your head still or move it the opposite direction as the rest of your body. The next time that you rock to the right, rock all the way onto your right side. You can have your blanket under your head, or you can use your arm under your head. What I don't want is for you to collapse down. So either have arm under head or blanket under head, or both. Bring your legs out in front of you, stacking your knees. We did this last week. Take your left hand, so you're lying on your right side, take your left hand and use your hand on your pelvis more as a guide to notice if you're able to keep the pelvis still. And we're going to just start to lift the left leg off the right leg. So you're opening and closing the leg. And as you're doing this, you're monitoring how much movement is happening in your pelvis underneath your hand. And we don't want to rock forward and back. We don't want to hike it up and down. We want to see if we can create as much stability, stillness under our hand. Next time you bring the knees together, keep the knees together and just lift the foot off the bottom foot, and then bring the foot back down and just lift the knee. Then alternate between internal rotation, that's when we lift the foot and the knee stays down. When the foot stays down and the knee lifts, we're going into a little bit of external rotation. So again, do this a few more rounds, just noticing, can you keep the pelvis, the part that you feel under your hand, still. It's not about how much movement we get, it's how much movement can you get without using your pelvis to think that you're getting more. And then the last movement we have is that extension. So start to take the knee straight back and then bring it back to touch the other knee. So you're going backwards and forwards. And this is the big one. Do you feel like the pelvis rocks forward to take the knee further back? Minimize that. So only take the knee as far back as you can keep your pelvis still. The next time you take the knee back, stay there. Look down and see, can you push your pocket forward without tilting your pelvis forward? So where your hand would be in your pocket, push your pocket into your hand, and then just straighten and bend the left knee. Each time you bend your left knee, think of kicking your heel to your hip and reaching the knee to the bottom edge of the short end of your mat. And then keep it bent and just pulse the knee back by pushing the pocket into your hand. And you might feel a little bit of awareness of your hamstrings and your glutes in the back. And then prop up. So we're going to come into a Z-sit. A Z-sit can look like different things. If this is really uncomfortable, you can prop your right hip up on a blanket or even a block if it needs to be higher. You can have your left knee inside of your right foot, or if you do have access to more hip extension, you can take the knee back so it's in line with your left hip. Twist your torso towards your right thigh and bring your hands to the floor. Your right hand is in line with your right hip, and your left hand is in line with your right knee. Use the hands to push yourself away and think of rounding your spine. And you have to tuck your pelvis a little bit. And then as you inhale, hand comes behind your back, round your chest towards the sky. Exhale, twist, left hand comes in line with right knee. Push yourself away, tuck your pelvis, and think of rounding your low back. As you inhale, twist open, hand comes behind your head, look up towards the sky. Exhale, twist, use your hands to push the floor away, tuck your pelvis, round through your spine. Inhale, open up. Last time, twist towards, hand comes down in line with your left knee or right knee. Tuck your pelvis and round through your low back. Hold here, and each exhalation, think of tilting your pubic bone into your belt buckle or your belly button. You're going to feel a stretch in your quad, the front of your hip. You may feel some glute activity. Good. Come out of that, and we're going to come to hands and knees. So kind of wrap your left leg around. Hands on the ground. And just start to move through cat-cow, not really thinking about anything, just allowing this as a moment to kind of tune out and just move in any way that your body wants you to move. And then keep your knees underneath your hips, but take your shins out. So we're going to bring the legs, the hip joints into internal rotation. And we're going to start to just try to move the low back. So as you exhale, think of pulling the pubic bone or the tailbone towards the belly button. And as you inhale, lift and spread your sit bones only as much as you can. It won't allow you to with your legs in internal rotation that much. So just kind of experiment with that. And then find neutral. If at any times your wrists are uncomfortable, you can use your blocks. and bring your forearms down to your block. So just know that if wrist discomfort is a problem, that you can do that. So we're going to take the left leg back, the leg that we've already been working on extension, and we're going to cross it over your right calf and then kick the left heel towards your booty. And you're just going to swish your left leg in and out. So we are targeting internal and external rotation in our left hip, the shin that's moving. The next time you take your leg out, keep it out and just lift the left knee straight back and to about hip height. And then tap behind the calf. Lift it and lower. So with our leg, keep doing that. With our leg in internal rotation, with our hip joint in internal rotation, we are targeting more your inner hamstrings. So the hamstrings on the inside of your thigh. It makes it a little bit easier to not try to get excessive movement by opening the hip if we continue to tap to the outside of your calf. The next time you lift, stay lifted, toes pointed towards the sky, and just pulse the toes towards the sky. We're being careful not to collapse the chest or round the spine. We're trying to keep a nice long spine as we pulse. And then bring the knee back down. Toes tuck under, round your spine, and sit back as if you were going into child's pose. Hands on the floor, push the floor away, and feel the lower back round strongly. Keep the toes tucked under. Draw the hands back, come up onto your knees, stacking your spine. Reach your hands out in front and lean back. Good. Come forward. Hands into your hip creases. Start to hinge. So let the hips go back. We are keeping a long spine. Go as far towards the floor as you can, then tuck the pelvis. Sit the hips back, hands to the floor, go back into that rounded low back. The more you push down and push your fingers forward, you're going to feel more of that rounding in your low back. Keep the spine rounded. Stack the spine, hands peel back, line all the way up, come all the way up. Hands on your pockets, push your pockets into your hands, lean back. Good. Tilt forward, hinge, spine parallel to the floor. When you can't go any further, start to round, hands come to the floor, push back. The more you push down and push forward, the more the low back rounds. Start to stack the spine. Hands drag up the thighs. Once the hands touch the pockets, push back. Good. If you need a blanket under your knee and it's not artery already there, I would suggest it. We're going to keep our left knee on the ground and take the right foot forward. You have the blocks if you need them. They can be great for stability. Tuck the left toes under. We did this last week. So you're going to think of pinching, and we use the block for this. I kind of like the block for a couple. Take the block so that the top edge of the block is right in your hip crease, and hinge over the block and then push the pocket forward. Hinge, push the pocket forward. Once you feel that you have that, you can get rid of the block and maybe go back a little further, but push the pocket forward. So to come up into that upright position, it's because your quad, your glute, and your hamstring are coordinating together to really stabilize the left lower trunk. Stay up. Push your hand in like you were putting it in your pocket. And as you start to go forward, push the pocket into your hand. Bring your hands down onto the block. Keep pushing the pocket forward and kick your heel towards your hip. Hold it. Keep pushing the pocket forward and push the knee forward. And I'm not on the tip of my knee. I'm actually more on the quad above my knee, but I'm dragging it forward. Tap the toe down. Start to reach your left heel back. Keep the hips low and straighten the left leg. Lower the knee back to the ground. Tilt back. Push the pocket forward. Go as far forward as you can. Maybe hands comes to the blocks. Maybe you just go forward and hold. Kick the heel towards your hip and hold. Keep pushing the pocket into your hand and keep driving your left knee forward, like you're scraping it on the floor. Good. Drop the toe to the ground. Start to push through the heel. Keep the hips as low as you can as you stretch the left leg back. Good. Lower the knee. One more time, hands either on the blocks or not. Take the hips back. Push the pocket forward. Keep pushing the pocket forward as you bend deeper into your right knee. Kick the heel towards your hip. Drive the knee forward, push the pocket forward. Left toes to the ground. Push the pocket forward, push through your left heel, lift the left leg, and step forward. You can move the blanket out of the way. So my feet, I'm not in a full high lunge. I'm going to start with my left toes, maybe just about an inch behind my right heel. The feet are about hip distance apart. So they're like on train tracks. I have a slight bend in my right knee. And I'm going to bend my left knee, lifting the left heel off the ground. I have my hand where my pocket would be. I'm going to start to push the pocket into my hand as I lift my left heel off the ground. Hands on either side of your hips, so thighs. You're going to round your spine. The whole time you're tucking your pelvis, so you're pushing your pocket forward. Round down only as far as you can, and then round back up. So you're rounding through your spine as you push the pocket forward. You feel a lot of the back of the left hip and glute and thighs, and then round up. So really tuck the pelvis, push pocket forward, round. This time, stay rounded and straighten the back leg and allow the heel to touch the floor as you shift your torso forward. Then bend the knee and stack the shoulders back above the left hip. Push the left heel down, allow it to kind of thrust you forward. And then bend as you push the pocket forward. Good. Round, push the heel. Good. So we're going to try to step that left foot back a little bit more. So take it back a little bit. Hand on the pocket, push the pocket forward. So tuck the pelvis, round the spine, reach the heel, allow that to move your torso out over your right knee. To come up, bend the knee towards the floor, push the pocket forward. Two more here. Good. So really feel the heel push towards the floor. The back of the left leg powers up to push the torso forward. Next time you go forward, stay forward. Get light in your left foot. Bring more of the weight to your right foot. Tap your left foot beside your right foot. And then tap it back. Tap your left foot forward. Tap it back. Tap your left foot forward. Tap it back. Maybe lift the left foot up and down. Or you can continue to tap. Bring both legs beside each other. Feet wide, toes turn out slightly. Reach both arms over your head. Bring them in front of your shoulder. Look down at the ground. Bend the knees around the spine. Go all the way towards the floor. Stack it back up. Reach up. Hands in front of your shoulders. Look down. Bend the knees to round the spine. Stack it back up. Turn towards your right foot. Hands to your shoulders. Bend your knees. Take both hands down your right leg. Stack it back up. Reach up. Turn towards your left foot. Bend your knees. Round your spine. Hands go down your left leg. Stack it back up. Reach both hands up. Round towards the floor. Hands on the floor, your blocks. Bend your knees like a squat. And then round your spine. Push your spine towards the ceiling. Let your hands lift off the floor. Bend the knees. Reach forward. Hands to the floor. Straighten your legs. Curl to lift your lower back towards the sky. Touch the floor. One more time. Come into that kind of squat. Round your spine. Drop your head. Let your head hang. Straighten the legs. Curl the front of your body to lift the spine towards the sky. Hands to the floor and step back into downward facing dog. Tuck your pelvis round to plank. Tuck your pelvis round to down dog. Tuck your pelvis round to plank. Tuck your pelvis round to down dog. Come to plank. Lower to the ground either by lowering your knees and then all the way down, or you can lower down through chaturanga. Bring your elbows underneath your shoulders. Stretch your chest forward. Press the fronts of your feet into the floor firmly and press your thighs into the floor firmly. Start to tuck your pelvis to lift first your lower belly off the floor, and then lifting to hover. You're on your knees. Roll back down. Stretch the chest forward. Start to tuck your pelvis as if you're trying to pull your pubic bone towards your navel to lift the hips away from the floor, lifting just to your knees. Pause. And then thighs lower, pubic bone lower, belly lowers, chest stretches. One more time. Tuck your pelvis. Lift the hips away from the floor. Hover. And lower back down. Stack your hands on stack your forehead on your hands. Bend your left knee. Push your pocket towards the floor and lift the left knee off the floor by pressing the right leg into the floor. So we're not lifting the pelvis, we're just trying to lift the knee. And just lift the knee a couple of times. Lifting and lowering. Trying to keep your left hip point as close to the floor as possible. The more you press into your right leg, the more the left hip point will stay down. Last time, let yourself reach your left leg all the way over to the right side of your mat. So stretch your back, stretch your core, stretch the front of the left hip. Good. Roll back down. Hands underneath your shoulders, press up through hands and knees, and then press back into a regular child's pose. You can rest your forehead on the floor. You can rest it on a block. You can stack your hands. Let your hips shift side to side. So just kind of noticing what you feel side to side. We just did a lot of work on the left side, and we get to go back and do it all on the right side now. So we're going to start in quadruped or hands and knees. Take a few minutes or a few moments to move through just whatever cat-cow feels good on your spine. So not thinking too much about it, just allowing it to sync with your breath and to release any tension that you may be feeling anywhere throughout the body. And then try to still your body, either on your elbows on the block, or on your hands, and see if you can just isolate the movement to the lower back and pelvis. So thinking of tucking and untucking the pelvis to create lumbar flexion and extension. And then find neutral. So neutral is not allowing everything to collapse. Neutral is stable. We're pushing the floor away. The ribs are moving away from the floor, and there's a slight curve in your low back. It's not rounded. And take your right calf and cross it behind your left calf. And we're going to start with that internal and external rotation. So swishing the leg in and out. And maybe you notice that this side feels a little different than the other. Maybe you're able to move it more in one direction than the other. And we're going to stay in that internal rotation, which means the foot's going to swish out. We're going to lift our left knee, our right knee, to hip height or as high towards hip height as we can, and then tap behind the calf. So you're just lifting and lowering. So favoring this slight internal rotation of the hip joint makes it a little easier not to open the pelvis, but it also targets the inner fibers of your hamstring. Next time you lift, stay lifted, and you're going to pulse. And as you pulse, you're going to be careful to not feel that you're arching your back to lift your foot higher. You're trying to keep the movement right in the back of the hip and the hamstring. Good. Go ahead and lower. And we're going to come down and do what we didn't do on the other side. So we're going to come into that Z sit, because we forgot to do this before we go to the rest. So you can either have the knee and the foot, or you can have it back a little bit. Twist towards your left thigh, right hand in line with your left knee. Start to tuck your pelvis, so pubic bone towards your navel, and round through your lower back. Bring the hand behind the head and open up chest towards sky. Twist back as you do, start to round through your entire spine, then tuck the pelvis, pubic bone towards navel. Pushing the floor away to round more, and then open. One more time. How much can you round through your low back? Lift open. And we're going to come on to our right knee. So if you like the cue, the sensation of having the block as that kind of pivot point, so that you can feel your hip crease and so that you can feel your thigh press into the block, you can use that. And we're going to tuck the back toes under, tilt back, and then push your pocket into the block. Tilt back, push the pocket into the block. And then maybe you decide to remove the block and just bring the hand And notice I'm not trying to straighten this leg. All of the work that we're doing right now is in your right hip and leg. And you should feel both the quads, the front of your thighs, and your hamstrings and your glutes actively working through this movement. You can have the blanket under your knee if it's not there. And you're going to take your blocks and frame your left foot. So allow your hips to go forward of your back knee, but bring your hand onto your pocket and push the pocket forward. And the reason that we do this is we are looking for a posterior tilt. We want your pelvis to tilt backwards rather than to dump forward. And when we go into these really far stretches, oftentimes the pelvis starts to dip forward and we're no longer in a posterior tilt. Not that that's wrong. It's just not what we're doing today. So go as far forward as you can. Push the pocket forward. Feel hamstrings, glutes, all those things. And then kick your right heel towards your hip. At the same time, you're still pushing the pocket forward, but you're also pushing your knee forward. So that's going to get deep hip extension. It's going to encourage that posterior to pelvic tilt so your low back does not arch. And yes, sometimes it causes hamstring cramps. You can try to go a little slower or maybe not lift as high. And then reach the toe down. Keep it tucked under. Try to keep the hips as low as they are currently and just reach the heel back to stretch the back of the leg. The knee lifts. Good. Round two. Maybe we keep our hands on the blocks. Maybe we come up. I'm going to do a couple of those little hip dips. So push the pocket back, push the pocket forward. Push the pocket back, push the pocket forward. Really feeling each time you push the pocket forward, everything on the back of your leg and thigh works. Keep the pocket forward, then shift forward. Only shifting as far forward as you can keep the front of your hip open. And then kick the heel towards your hip. Or take your hands to the blocks and kick your heels towards the hip. Keep pushing the pocket forward, keep driving the knee forward. Hold. Release the foot. Maybe you take your hands to the blocks. Maybe you keep your hands on the hips. Reach the leg back, lift, and then step forward. So we're going to that feet or hip distance apart. Your right foot is going to step just an inch behind your left foot. We're going to bend both knees, but more so the right knee. And we're going to push the pocket forward. If it helps to have the cue of your hand there, whatever you need to keep this back of your leg on. And then your hands reach down as you round through your spine and round back up. Just a few times, trying to round down as far as you can, and then stack it back up. Keep pushing the pocket forward. And then if that's feeling good, you can take that foot back a little further, stay on the back toes, push the pocket forward, round down, round back up, round down. This time, heel pushes towards the floor and you allow your torso to shoot out over your left knee. Bend the knee, push the pocket, roll back up. Roll down, push the heel, allow that to move you forward, bend the knee, push the pocket, stack back up. Two more like that. Good. We're going to go into that one more time. Go into that forward position, and then you're going to tap forward and tap back. Tap forward and tap back. So my spine is staying relatively neutral. When we have that tucked pelvis, oftentimes it helps to alleviate this excessive extension in your spine that is often found when we try to do that otherwise. Not wrong all the time, but we want to see, can we do this with a neutral spine? Next time you tap back, stay back. Engage the core, think of pushing the right pocket forward, and then see, can you just lift and tap that back leg? And you can continue to just tap. You can tap and lift. Whatever you want to experiment with this. Okay. And then come to stand. Feet hip distance apart. Reach your arms over your head. Bend your knees. Look down with your neck. Tuck your chin. Roll down. Roll back up. Reach the arms up. Turn towards your right leg. Bend your knees. Roll down over your right leg. Roll back up. Arms reach up. Turn towards your left leg. Round through your spine. Bend the knees. Shift the hips as you needed. Reach back up. One more time down the middle. Hands to the floor, knees bent, or to the blocks. You're going to shift your hips back, bring the arms forward. Hands to the floor or the block. Straighten the legs. Exhale, lift the belly button away from the floor. And then lower. Shift into that squat, arms forward. Tilt down. Exhale, lift as leg goes straight. One more time, squat. One more time, lower. Exhale, lift belly button away from the floor to get that little lift into flexion of the spine, and then step back into down dog. Tuck the pelvis to roll to plank. Bend the knees and tuck the pelvis to roll back to down dog. Do that a few more times. Just feeling, do you feel a little bit more connected to that ability to round through your entire spine? So you're not just shifting forward and back. You're trying to create a wave with your spine because our spine is designed to move. We don't want to keep it stiff all the time. Next time you come to plank, lower down and lower all the way down onto your belly. Stack. Forehead on your hands. Bend your right knee. Try to press your right hip point towards the floor. And then the left leg presses strongly. Lift and lower just the right knee off the floor. Couple of more times, then hold. Keep trying to rotate the right hip point towards the floor as you press through your left leg. And then allow it to reach all the way over to the right. So stretching. Roll back down onto your belly. Bring your elbows underneath your shoulders. Press the fronts of your feet down, fronts of your thighs down. Start to peel pubic bone towards your navel to lift the hips off the floor. Hover on your knees. And then thighs roll down, pubic rolls down. Stretch the chest forward. 2 more times like that. Exhale, tuck the pelvis. Pubic bone peels off. Hover. Almost think of rounding your spine like it's impossible to round your spine, but think about rounding the spine to engage the front of the core. and then lower. Stretch the chest forward. Hands to the ground underneath your shoulders. Press up through your hands and knees. Tuck your toes and shift the hips back. If you want a blanket under your bottom or a block under your bottom, we're going to stay here for several breaths. You don't have to have your head on the floor. You don't have to have your butt on your heels. The one thing that I would encourage is see if you can find some rounding through your low back. Come up to hands and knees. Bring your right leg straight back. Lift your right leg, keeping your right hip point squared down towards the floor. Start to pulse without arching your low back. So can you keep that lift solely in your hamstrings and glutes? Bend the knee and do the same. Bring the right foot up between your hands and come up onto your knees, half kneeling. Tuck your left toe under. Push your left pocket forward. Shift into your front foot and come up to a high lunge. So from this position, we're going to bend our left knee to hover over the floor. Push the pocket into your left hand. And then you're going to tilt forward as you straighten the back leg. And then tilt forward more. Maybe you just think of lifting the top of your left thigh. Maybe you lift into warrior three. You also have blocks there if you would like to bring your hands to the blocks. Slow bend of your right knee. Bring the foot back to the floor. Push the pocket forward and come back to that high lunge. Straighten your left leg as you tilt forward. Lift the back of your left thigh. And maybe you keep the toe on the ground and just feel that lift. Maybe you lift the left leg. Bring the foot back down to the ground. Step your left leg beside your right. Inhale, reach both arms over your head. As you exhale, round through your spine. Take your feet as wide as you need. Heels can lift off the floor. Kind of shift back. And then bring your hands behind your back and roll onto your back. Take your hands outside of your knees and push your hands and your knees together. And you're going to start by lifting your butt and then roll. And then lift your butt and roll. So you're rolling, but you have that awareness when you roll back on your spine of trying to tuck your pelvis to lift. And the knees are wide apart. So we're trying not to bring our knees together. We want the knees pressing out into the hands to be able to access more of that tuck of the pelvis. Good. Next time you roll up, and come back to hands and knees. Take your left leg straight back. Roll your inner thigh towards the sky, and then lift the left leg parallel to the ground. So we're trying to keep the pelvis squared to the ground. We're not trying to see how high we can lift the leg. We want to keep the pelvis squared down and just use your hamstrings and glutes to lift. Start to pulse. Notice if you're trying to pulse in your spine and keep your spine still. And then bend the knee and pulse a few more times. And then bring the left leg through to half kneeling. Push your pocket forward. Tuck your right toes under. Bring more awareness of the weight in your front foot, your left foot. And you're gonna lift and hover your back knee off the ground. Hand to the pocket, push the pocket forward. You're gonna start to straighten the back leg, let it tilt you forward. Maybe you stay here and just lift the back of your right thigh towards the sky. Maybe you take your hands down to a block and lift the right leg off the ground like warrior 3. Maybe you start to create that pulse here. Bring the right leg back down to the ground. Bend the right knee as you lift back up into that hover. Push the pocket forward. Start to straighten the back leg. This time, maybe the front knee stays bent and you lift and lower or hold in warrior 3. Bring the right leg beside the left leg. Take your feet mat distance apart. Stand up straight. Reach the arms over your head. Fold. Bring the hands to the floor or a block. Step your feet as wide as you'd like. And just shift the hips side to side. Let the head hang, maybe bringing your elbows to the blocks or just allowing your full spine to round. And then as you're ready, make your way down either to child's pose if that's what you want, or maybe you prefer to lie on your back and bring your knees in towards your chest. You can rock a little side to side. Whether you be in child's pose or Balasana. And then if you're in child's pose, either come flat onto your back, or maybe you prefer to come onto your belly. And if you're lying on your back, just stretch your legs long. And take a few breaths here, just noticing how far your ribs rest away from the floor. A lot of times it's that lack of lumbar flexion that doesn't allow that point where our rib cage meets our low back to relax. A lot of times it's lack of extension in the thoracic spine, which we also did. So just notice, do you feel a little different? Do you feel that your pelvis and your rib cage are more connected, like the bowl top of each mirror each other? And as you're ready on your own time, you can make yourself or make your way up to a seated position. And we have come to the completion